Alrighty everyone, welcome back. Now, given that a lot of things have been happening behind the scenes over at Disney and Lucasfilm between Bob Iger and the higher-ups over at Disney, and what's about to be announced, by the way, at Star Wars Celebration and D23 slated for next year, is also going to be a game changer. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing about the new universe by, of course, a handful of creators joining Lucasfilm and including John and Dave is that they really are trying to find an avenue that's going to attract a lot of the Lost fans that walked away from the sequel trilogy and really said something true to themselves that they never wanted to return. So basically, Disney's trying to attract those fans back to come back to the Star Wars franchise and exactly where that's going to lead them. Now, given that we have a handful of Star Wars shows coming out next year, as well as 2024, and so on and so forth, there's a lot of things on the horizon. We also have, of course, Bob Iger calling many of the shots on the roadmap, and basically his game plan is to now focus on movies again very soon, instead of primarily focusing on TV shows per se. And by the way, this is something that Chapek wanted to do, except Chapek wanted to take it more slow. However, Iger wants to jump right back into the movies as fast as possible. My only concern is if you rush the movies out, they may lack in quality. Now that moving on to the next big thing here actually involves Kathleen Kennedy saying something quite controversial to the fans that actually does indeed involve George Lucas and what kind of power she has over at Lucasfilm and how that's going to interfere with some of the lore. Let's explain. Now, with many new Star Wars TV shows currently in development, both FAVREAU and Filoni are getting ready to announce a host of new shows at Celebration. However, in a recent interview with Kathleen Kennedy, she went on to talk more about the Star Wars franchise when it comes to her shows like Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. Kennedy went on to state the following: "Myself, Leslie, and John Watts are working so hard on these projects and are thrilled to say that we will still be using these projects to undo some of the Lucas choices that he made with the past Star Wars films. Fans like to call these retcons, but we like to call them twists and or turns in the franchise, and how it can alter the story. It was always our plan with the Acolyte to have the show heavily impact the storytelling and the lore of the prequels and the lore of those movies in general, and that's exactly what we are doing right now." So let me just pause here quick for a second. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Leslie Headland even admitted to this quite a number of months ago too, that basically the Acolyte is going to retcon a lot of things in the prequel trilogy movies, and how Favreau and Filoni are very offended over that, and they're trying to create their own retcons themselves that's going to undo Kathleen and Leslie's changes, and there's like a lot of drama and toxicity going on behind the scenes, as you can tell. But when you look at something like this, where Kathleen Kennedy is just outright saying to the fans that Lucas's choices and decisions that he made for the prequels are going to be undone to a degree, I think is horrible. You know, I don't know why she has this type of attitude where you feel need be to erase somebody's great work just because they were heavily criticized at one point in time. Today, they're cherished. The prequel trilogy is cherished right now, you know, and I think that they're great films. I mean, I'm not comparing them 100% to the originals. You can never beat the originals, in my opinion, but they are great movies. And for Kathleen Kennedy to come out and say that she likes to call retcons, not retcons, but twists and or turns, just makes no sense at all, by the way. It's kind of like her own simple terminology, but moving on to the next thing. Alright, we already know that both Leslie and, of course, Kathleen have been working together for a long time on the show. Even Leslie Headland said that she's not even really a Star Wars fan, and that she has never watched the prequel trilogy from start to finish, and that's another concerning element. If you have somebody retconning stuff, right, that's one thing, but for somebody to be retconning stuff that doesn't even know Star Wars is another terrible thing that could go haywire and wrong. You know, that's where I get a little concerned, and that's where I get a little, on edge about what this show is going to really look like at the end of the day and how it's going to impact the fandom. So, moving on to the next thing here, alright? So, she goes, on a side note, I also wanted to point out that with Skeleton Crew, we will be doing the same process as we are with Acolyte, by altering numerous choices made by Lucas with the same elements of the original trilogy. It's truly an exciting time to embrace these twists and returns. Additionally, aside from what Kennedy said here behind the scenes, FAVREAU and Filoni are fighting to stop all of this, as they are already helping out with Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, and Disney higher-ups are also trying to intervene and put Kennedy aside from making these changes that will create a fan backlash. So basically what's happening is that FAVREAU and Filoni are trying to prevent all of this from happening. They're trying to erase these scenes, they're trying to get rid of what's been filmed already for the Acolyte, and really just call it a day and walk away. They want to get rid of this as soon as possible. And that's a big deal, because when you look at it like this, right? You have somebody like Kathleen Kennedy that has no problem doing this. If she has no problem doing this, she has no problem doing anything else. That's a fact. And so you can see why so many, people have issues with Kathleen Kennedy on the professional scale. Why so many people always left a project or got fired or fell into creative decisions or arguments or whatever have you. There's always something with Kathleen Kennedy, and this is the reason why. Her mentality is calling retcons twists and returns. It's not really that simple per se. When you look at a retcon, it truly does change many things, not necessarily always as a twist and a return, It could very well be something that's very controversial to the fandom, that's really going to make them very annoyed and very frustrated with the creator, and you don't want that. You don't want another Last Jedi situation, you don't. Now, when you look at Acolyte, they have been trying to get this thing out on time for 2023, which by the way is no longer happening. They have officially delayed the show until 2024. It's looking to be a January or February release, so just be aware about that. Is that it will be the first 2024 show to kickstart that year, and that's what the Acolyte's going to be. I know some fans out there are like, well, why can't they just cancel the show, or I bet the show is going to get canceled. Well, at this point, it's not looking too likely, because they're already well into the filming, and they're getting closer to its completion. And on the side note here, like she said, it's all about these twists and returns that are going to impact the prequels. And I think that Disney needs to just wake up and just maybe just put an end to it right now. Get rid of those scenes, let FAVREAU and Filoni win and have their day, and let them fix what they gotta fix. That's it. I think that this show really could very well harm the community when it comes to how they think about, certain timelines. So, overall, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.